Warhammer 40k Dark Heresy. Is it going to be Warhammer 40k's version of Baldur's Gate 3? Today, I've brought on the resident expert, Revan619. Revan, thank you so much for joining me. Can you give everybody some background on what makes you the guy for everything Rogue Trader and Dark Heresy?
I'm Revan619. I make little YouTube videos for builds and guides on how to play, and obviously a little bit of min-maxing side of things, but from more lore-friendly perspective. I basically decided to start making YouTube videos for what I wanted to see for Rogue Trader, because there wasn't someone filling the niche about informing people how to play. So I ended up creating the content that I wish was there when I was trying to learn the game myself.
And you've done a very, very good job. I know that when I did my first successful unfair run of Rogue Trader, I basically exclusively used your builds until I kind of learned a couple of the ins and outs of the games, even though nowadays I'm still not as knowledgeable as you are. But that's besides the point. Today we're here to talk about basically if we are going to have a 40k equivalent of Baldur's Gate 3. Are we going to have a game that appeals to the masses, sells extremely well, and performs extremely well in the long run with tons of replayability, a great community reception? Is Dark Heresy going to be that game? Before we get to that though, let's talk about why Rogue Trader wasn't necessarily that game. Rogue Trader is a fantastic game. I still think that from a narrative perspective, Rogue Trader is the best Warhammer 40k game, but it didn't do as well as Baldur's Gate 3. Why? Why is that, Revan? What are some of the elements that basically make Baldur's Gate 3 excel where Rogue Trader doesn't?
Well, you have a lot of the surface analysis, whereas Baldur's Gate 3 had full voice acting, it had a voice narrator, it had motion capture, and it had all the really pretty visuals to get people in the door. But if you were to say and just stop there, I think that would be a little bit disingenuous, because there's a lot more to it. Rogue Trader is a very scary game for people coming in. Yes, I know compared to Kingmaker or After the Righteous, Rogue Trader's a lot easier than Alcat's previous entries. But when you go to your first level up and you have 600 talents to choose from, and then you spread them out across 55 levels, that's just really intimidating for a new player, and that can just put people off at their very first level up.
That's honestly what kept me from progressing in Rogue Trader for the longest time, was that first level up during the prologue of the game, where you just have all these talents to choose from, and it's like, what the heck do I choose here? And just reading through them, and then all of a sudden, 3 hours have gone by, and I've just been looking at every single talent and passive in the game. I don't necessarily think that that is cohesive to introducing a new player to the experience or to your CRPG. For Baldur's Gate 3, using the 5th edition combat system and just the 5th edition rule set in general, it's so easy to level up pretty much five or six of the different classes in the game, because if you don't have to pick any spells, the game basically levels everything up for you. It's super simple, super straightforward, and the fact that you only had a certain number of subclasses meant that your experience was more catered anyways. But one of the things that Rogue Trader also kind of fell victim to, and this is definitely Alcat's fault, was a very buggy release. Do you have any comments on that, Revan?
Yeah, Alcat are a very ambitious studio. They like to try to get to the game that they want to make, but there's obviously budgeting constraints, time constraints, and it's so technical constraints as well, because the Unity engine itself is very limiting. When I was playtesting previous DLCs to them a month before release, one of their bug testers kept asking me how I would find bugs so quickly and easily, and I'd always just say, you're in Unity, I can tell what's going to break before I even see the new system. So Alcat have done a really good job to try and fix a lot of it, but it's still slow. There are bugs in the game now that people would consider major bugs that have been in there since day one. I recently discovered a bug that's probably been there since launch that they must have known about, and people just hadn't been too vocal about it, which was Psyker Staffs count as melee attacks. So your Psyker powers are actually melee attacks that get melee talents and can use melee abilities.
Oh boy. So you just double
And
dip.
there's no way Owlcat didn't know that, because that means, like, say you get the flamethrower psych power that shoots multiple fireballs, you can actually use the melee attack Reckless Strike to guarantee critical and increase your damage based on your strength. And that's from a psych power, and you can stack your agility to your damage for psych powers. Basically, all your warrior and blade dance melee talents will apply to psych staffs.
That's absolutely crazy. I know that there are definitely some ridiculous interactions in Baldur's Gate 3 as well, but I think that when it comes to breaking down the nitty-gritty of, like, what do I build, what do I not build, what is bugged, what isn't bugged, what works, what doesn't work, what is intended, that's really not as important as some of the other things. Like, for example, so in Rogue Trader, once you get to Act 2, the game really opens up. Like, all the supporting systems really open up to help you roleplay as a Rogue Trader. But all I feel like that does is kind of take you away from what I think is kind of the best element of the game, which is kind of that character build, crafting, progression, and combat. Whenever you get into a ship combat, or whenever you have to interact with the various planets in your dynasty, it's just all kind of boring for me. I don't know. That's my opinion and perspective. I prefer to just actually get into the nitty and gritty of the game's combat. Is that like crazy, Revan?
No, because when the map opens up and you get that free roam, it is very scary. Now, it depends on how experienced you are with, like, the Final Fantasy style RPGs when you have that sort of system. But for me, I know when I first got to Act 2, I was like, oh my god. And I actually took a massive break on my run from that. But the thing is, space combat's still a massive issue, because on Unfair, my last 2 live streams, I actually lost both runs because of space combat. One was a bug where the enemy got infinite turns, and I just had to watch as I slowly died because it kept skipping my turn.
Oh, was this on Grimdark?
Yeah.
Grimdark is basically the honor mode of Rogue Trader. Once you die, you die,
Iron
you
Man
lose.
mode. We should come back to that honor mode comment in a second, though, because I have some information on that. But the second one, I basically I did my space combat out of order, because the thing is, when you go through the worlds, it's pretty obvious what ordering you can go through the worlds, level up and do fine and not have a big challenge. Space combat, you need to know a hyper-specific route that there is no way to know unless you've already done every space encounter in the game. And it's something I'm currently working on, is a guide for the order of what you have to do every space combat to guarantee success every time on Unfair Grimdark. Because I skipped 2 encounters and tried to do the Void Station fight at my last run, and I rotated around the space station to the right instead of the left, and I got hit by 2 laser turrets and I got 2 shots. And I was like, well, there goes that 30-hour run. Whereas if I'd gone left, I would have been fine. Or if I'd done the extra 2 space encounters, I would have had the next armor piece, which meant I would have survived those shots. So yeah, space combat is still a bit iffy. I know Owlcat said it was very successful, but I have never heard anyone in the community say a good thing about the space combat.
Yeah, I don't know what metrics they're looking at, but also, do you think the franchise has any bearing on why Baldur's Gate 3 was so successful compared to Rogue Trader? Because when I look at 40k and Dungeons and Dragons, in my mind, they're very comparable to how popular they are. But I do know that Dungeons and Dragons, at least from like a internet search standpoint, has recently exploded due to the success of things like Critical Role or D&D Beyond, basically having a portal where you have all of your resources that you'd ever need as a dungeon master or as a player all in one place. I don't really think 40k has a massive like online tabletop scene, not in the same way that Dungeons and Dragons does.
No, that's true. Well, obviously, Baldur's Gate 3 had the advantage that Act 1 is essentially a dating sim, so there's a huge swath of the community that have never left Act 1 that just constantly replay those sections with pretty mods.
Any percent bang speedrun. Let's go.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that obviously the visual style, the way that cutscenes are done, it's just more appealing to a general audience that even if they're not Dungeons and Dragons fans, they'll be a fan of this. Like I know an actual real life friend couple that they replay that game a lot, and they've never gone into Act 2. But she like the partner, she really enjoys playing through on that point. Whereas Rogue Trader, they looked at it and she was like, "Oh, I don't like the visuals. I find it hard to engage with companions. There's too much reading." So I think for Owlcat, if they are going to improve, they need to find a way to stylize the interactions better, like having little portraits that pop up when they speak, which is something they're trying to do a little bit with Dark Heresy, but I don't think they've quite got it there. But they definitely need to have the voice acting and possibly even narration. Like I know some people are still on the fence about having a full narrator, but I'm looking at games that have it and that they do seem more engaging.
Oh yeah, because again, it just kind of makes it easier, makes the experience more like a movie than it is like a book or an audiobook. And I think that a lot of players are looking for experiences like that. I think that's why games like something as simple as God of War just perform really, really well, because it's as much a movie as it is a video game. It's a kind of combined experience, if you will.
Yeah, people throw shade at first-party PlayStation games all the time, but they are massively popular for that reason.
Oh yeah, and that pretty much summarizes why Rogue Trader did not perform as well as Baldur's Gate 3. I think that anybody who has played both games can kind of see those differences. Like, a lot of the combat systems in Rogue Trader are definitely there, but it's just not cohesive for new players, and when it comes to being, like, visually appealing, Baldur's Gate 3 definitely has got it beat. But does Dark Heresy do anything to address this? Now, I've played a couple of hours of the Dark Heresy Alpha. Revan has sunk significantly more time into it. Is Dark Heresy doing anything to address basically this obstruction that it has towards new players, Revan?
I think that they are doing a lot, because obviously they're simplifying leveling, they're tying it more around their specializations, which, whilst it's not as hand-holding as Baldur's Gate and 5th edition, because obviously the only real choices you have to make is if you multi-class and what subclasses you pick at level 3. Dark Heresy is going to be doing something similar with specializations, which is at certain level points, you'll pick a specialization which will be like a subclass, and that will give you passive features and or slowly open up what talents that you have access to. And they have a cool little modification system which can make two identical builds play very differently. It all comes down to how much they introduce players to that correctly and how well they explain it, because if they just put in this system, they don't explain it, and you're just thrown into the world, that's going to be scary and put people off. I know it might seem silly with the whole sort of yellow paint mentality, but you need your RPGs and your CRPGs to explain level up to the player. Like, having that helpful older character that says that dumb line of, "Oh, if you take this talent, then this will do this." That, like, stuff like that to ease you into understanding how to level up and create your character would just be a lot more useful. Yes, I know I'm talking myself out of a job here, but it would still make the games more engaging to players.
Yeah, I'm particularly interested in modifications because I really like the idea of being able to customize and tailor every single skill almost exactly how you'd want them to play out in combat. I think that's really ideal for build crafting, and it's the kind of depth that I feel like anyone can understand. Anybody can comprehend. Like, so if I take this modification and I put it on this ability, like, it's going to make the ability do split damage or something cool like that. So it's kind of like a Path of Exile, like Path of Exile gems, where they will make abilities do different things or perform differently. What I don't want the modification system to be is simply boost the number by 25%. I think that that's where the system would probably fail a little bit, to be honest.
So it's a bit of both. Like, there is literally one that is increased rate of fire by 25%.
Oh boy.
But there are others. There are others that are a little bit more nuanced, which it will change what stat the ability scales with.
That's
so say,
cool. Yep.
say you have a talent that says per agility mod you can do X number of this. Some modifications will allow you to say, instead of scale that from agility, you can scale it from toughness, or even a completely different skill. Like the Ogren character can use the slash ability, which is slashes. You can make a number of attacks where you move through enemies based on agility, but he has fuck all agility. But as part of being an Ogren, he has a modification that allows him to scale that from intimidation, and as an Ogren, his intimidation scales from his toughness rather than his fellowship. So essentially, you use toughness to scale this agility-based ability.
That's the kind of build interaction that Baldur's Gate 3 just doesn't have. And that's where I feel like Rogue Trader has always excelled over Baldur's Gate 3, and I'm glad that Dark Heresy is going to be kind of carrying that forward. The bugs, though, Revan. Do you think Owlcat is going to be doing anything about a buggy release? Is Dark Heresy going to have a buggy release?
I would bet money on it. Unfortunately, I love Owlcat. I love the mentality of their developers. I love how good they are engaging. I love that they put up with my nonsense. But there is a huge technical limitation with the team, and they seem to miss stuff that just gets in. Like they'll work very hard to fix it, but yeah, they've never had a clean release of anything. There have been points where I play tested something a month early, and I pointed out bugs a month before the release, and it still made it a week into post-release. So unfortunately, yeah, I think it's because their team's either very small or there's actually issues with what they can do and fix with Unity. I think as long as they're on Unity, they're always going to have these issues.
I wonder if it's the maybe the QA cycle in a way, where for Baldur's Gate 3 they basically had like a long early release cycle, right? Whereas for Dark Heresy we're gonna have alpha tests, beta tests, and then release, or at least that's what I'm tracking when it comes to the launch of Dark Heresy.
Well, my engagement with their bug testers and the people fixing it was very quick. It'd literally be, I find a bug, it gets reported to whoever's in charge of that section, and it'd be probably fixed within a day or two.
Okay.
But
so we need more Revens. We need more testers.
I think it's still just a personnel size, because Owlcat don't have a big team, and I think that's mostly what it is. Their work speed is limited by their numbers, but they don't have quite the justifications to increase their team just yet.
Yeah, much smaller AA, I guess I would call them. Okay, well then let's move away from that, pivot over to some of the supporting systems that are in Dark Heresy. Dark Heresy introduces a system basically known as investigations, where you need to kind of catalog data and information and come to your own conclusion about what is happening in the narrative. And again, this is something that you would never see in Baldur's Gate 3, where your decisions all come with conversation interactions or skill check interactions. You never have to go to like a submenu and try to draw a conclusion based off of anything. The game is just not complex enough for that. The narrative is not complex enough for that. But in this game, there is really very little hand-holding when it comes to like telling you exactly what is going on. The game wants you to draw your own conclusion. Do you think that a system like this is going to draw players to the game, Revan, or do you think that it's going to keep people away?
I think it will be the big deciding factor for if people want to play or if they don't want to play, because it's going to be the majority of your early quest interactions. Obviously, we've only seen bits of Act 1, so we don't know how far the system goes, but I think it is going to be the main driving factor of the game. And I like it. I like creating the sort of the mind maps and having those big boards and interlocking things. The concerns that I have is obviously, the game will never punish you for what conclusion you come up with. You could actually pick the wrong answer on purpose because you want to screw over a specific faction, and the game will accept that as valid. There's no one checking your homework. If you say it, it's in your report, consequences happen, and you find out what those consequences are. But I know that if you miss certain clues, you actually can't come to the correct solutions, and that might upset players.
Right.
Like there's one option where there's a cult that you can either go through a puzzle and you can sneak in, find out what they're doing, and then you can take them out. Or you can actually join the cult and get led down. Now, if you go either way, you can basically find out what's going on. One option will allow you to find out who they're worshipping, and you can blame who they're worshipping. The other option, if you go in the other way, you just blame the cult, but you don't find out whom they're serving. However, there was a glitch I found was I started both sides of that, and then I went one way to sneak in, and it sort of bugged the quest line, and then I was not able to pick the cult or who they were worshipping as my solution at the end. So stuff like that, there's still those sorts of quest flow bug issues. But yeah, that could possibly annoy some people, or people that don't want to do that much stuff. Like, you're not going to see people that die hard, like Space Marine players who are coming in to play Dark Heresy for that, because it's going to be too much of a meticulous, slow paced game for them, that even if they like the combat, they might not enjoy the questing system and talking to people. But I think to the actual CRPG players, it's going to be a big draw.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really cool system, but I think you would agree in that, from what I've experienced with the investigation system so far, it kind of locks you out of different conclusions and different story segments, which actually affects what items you get. And I'm not the biggest fan of that kind of system, mostly because if I want my characters to have a really fully optimized build, especially if the game's difficulty calls for that kind of optimization, then I don't want my build choices to be dictated by the story. I want them to work together. Like, I don't want to have to choose one or the other. But
so it's actually slightly worse than you realize based on what you're saying there. So it's not actually the investigation system that will pigeonhole you like that. It's the reputation system for the vendors.
I see.
So,
okay, yep.
So basically, your story decisions will either give you renown or like fear with different vendors. Depending on how much renown or fear will depend on what items you have access to. However, if you want a specific item, that means you have to make specific story choices to progress the vendor to that way, which will then lock you out with certain parts of the investigation.
Yep. Oh boy.
So this was a complaint that I raised, which is I was saying during the testing, like, I want the plasma gun. The only way I can get the plasma gun is to fuck off the Mechanicus, and I don't want to do that. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Or it could have been something. No, sorry. It was the heavy bolter. You had to make them like you to get the plasma gun. But basically that, and I was like, if I'm min-maxing a build and I'm making build videos and I'm telling people, oh, this is the best item in the game, I'm ruining people's story experiences, because I'm now locking them to how they have to play the game. And that's something that concerns me as, like, not just a player, but as a YouTuber. So, yeah, that stuff, I'm hoping that they work on that a little bit, because I don't like that sort of thing. Like, it makes sense, like, because obviously you do want to lock items like that, but you don't want one side to be objectively better. Like, did you ever play Star Wars Galaxies?
Oh yeah, a long time ago.
Like,
long time ago.
If you PvP'd on that for the Empire, you'd get ATST, and that was insane for PvP. If you played the Rebel Alliance, you'd get a backpack, which was kind of, yeah. So there was clearly a bad choice. Like, do you want an ATST or do you want a nice looking backpack? Like, so that's kind of what I'm worried about, is your story will, like, you can metagame unlock your story, and it's stuff that I do in Rogue Traders. It is because there are certain quest paths that will get you items that are really good that you can only get through certain alignments, and that's always concerned me. I want it to be that you're rewarded for choices and you have choice and consequence, but I don't want to have to play the game in a specific way to be able to get the items that I need or feel like I need. Yeah. So it's, I know it sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but saying one's good, one's bad, but there is a bit more nuance to it. And I would like to have different options.
It's a little bit of a double-edged sword, right? Because it is cool to receive things that might be a bit more thematic to the choices that you're making and to the direction that the story is going, and then you kind of just reorient your character's builds based off of the items that you're receiving. Because I'm sure that you'll be able to tackle the game's hardest difficulty, even if you don't completely optimize all of your items and completely, like, just tank your story or the narrative that you're trying to pursue.
Yeah.
based off of chasing better optimization for your builds. But it is just it's an interesting choice. To me, it seems like an interesting choice because it does not really line up with trying to be something that's more friendly to like new players, something that's more of a cohesive and intuitive experience. Definitely much more. It's more oriented towards like hardcore players or people who really want to understand the combat system, or at least that's how it all feels for me.
Yeah, I'm just hoping they don't do the same mistake that Baldur's Gate 3 did, which is if you try to do an evil alignment run, you're essentially just playing the good run, but with less rewards.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's something I always had a big complaint about. There is no evil run. It's the good run, but with reduced vendors. That's it.
Pretty
Loads
much.
of people have argued against me with that, and I was like, I don't mean dirge. I mean, if you actually play evil, you lock yourself out of certain items in Act 1, you lock yourself out of certain items in Act 2, and you lock yourself out of the best vendor in Act 3. Whereas if you do the good run, it's the exact same playthrough, but you have all those extras. So I always thought, well, what's the point of being evil? Like, the reason you play the villain is that evil gets you quicker gain rewards. Like, people do bad things for self-gain. Whereas if in the game, if you do evil things and there is no gain, you would never
get punished.
Be evil.
Yep.
Yeah, the evil person would actually play good. Because if you have the better rewards for doing the good thing, the evil person's going to do the good thing for the reward. So
Yep. But I guess returning to some of the other elements that do make Dark Heresy potentially a better new player friendly game. The game does have full character voice acting, and I do think that the 40k franchise is in a much better place than where we were when Rogue Trader initially released. We have Space Marine 2. Space Marine 2 generated a lot of interest in Warhammer 40k. The novels, the 40k like story itself is picking up more and more, and 2026 seems to be the year for Warhammer 40k games, followed by 2027 when we get Total War Warhammer 40k potentially, and everything's just going to kind of explode, and it's going to be peak 40k. But I feel like right now is a good time to release basically any 40k game, because it's all going to kind of get like this shotgun blast of attention, because there's so many people who are looking at all the different games that are going to be releasing in 2026 or right now. So like Bolt Gun 2, Mechanicus 2, Dark Heresy, obviously, Dawn of War 4, Space Marine 2 is going to be continuing to get updated, Dark Tide is going to be continuing to get updated, Rogue Trader is going to get its DLCs, and of course, we're going to be getting Total War Warhammer 40k in the future. There's just so much going on right now.
oh yeah, I think Owlcat, especially Owlcat, are in the position that Dark Heresy could be their Divinity Original Sin 2, whereas I don't think that at their current budget they're going to hit the heights of Baldur's Gate 3.
I agree.
If they nail bringing in new players with the enhanced visuals, if at the moment they've not worked on any sort of stylization for the talking interactions, they kind of just have portraits on the drop down, but it is slightly improved over Rogue Trader. But as long as they can introduce players correctly in the prologue, I think that they could be seeing 100k plus on launch. And it means that if they then do a Black Crusade game, that could be the game. Or that if they do a Kill Team game, that could be their big game where they have the budget to invest in a new engine, they have the budget to invest in full motion capture, and then they can create their Baldur's Gate 3. But it really does depend on how well that prologue introduces players. Like, they need to actually explain their systems. I know people don't like that Total War are looking to bring in an AI tutorial that's going to help people, but if they're not going to do something like that, they really need to have a better tutorial that explains the class system, that explains leveling up system. Like, players really shouldn't have to be searching a YouTuber like myself to have them explain, here's all your skills, here's all your attributes, here's how you focus your characters, here's how you do this. It should be self-contained.
Yeah, it's kind of the, I think the same train of thought going from Path of Exile 2 for grinding gear games, where they just want to make the game more intuitive. And I think I think the game is going to be more intuitive, especially with how specializations work and with modifications and everything. But I feel like if they really want to make it all work, they need to lean on the combat system more than they lean on a lot of the other supporting systems in the game. And I guess the final thing I will say that I'll kind of throw out there is that I also agree. I don't think that Dark Heresy is going to be 40k's Baldur's Gate 3, but I think you nailed it. It's basically going to be the franchise's Divinity Original Sin 2. And if they make a kill team game, like if they just make a Space Marine CRPG, that would go so freaking hard. Because as we've learned with Space Marine 2, if you throw Space Marines in anything, that game just sells copies. It just completely empties out shelves. So,
oh yeah, $1 million idea for them. And if GW's listening, a Death Watch kill team game where you have a full controlled CRPG, you make your own Astartes, your own chapter, and they all have different abilities, and you go through with your squad based on that. That's gonna sell.
Oh yeah.
When it comes to Dark Heresy, like I said, they really need to hit that balance with combat as well. To obviously build on what you were saying there, I know because we briefly mentioned about honor mode for Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
One of the community managers, Starrick, who's an absolutely lovely chap, top person. He's been pushing for a Rogue Trader brutal mode, which would be basically their version of honor mode, where they restrict some of the OP talents, where they fix some of the OP synergies, that they potentially limit extra turns and buffs and stuff. And they are looking to do it at that. If you look at the roadmap, they are saying that they're looking to adjust difficulty based on high level play. I think with DLC 3, if they do update it there, they need to get that right, and they need to have that going into Dark Heresy for it to basically work with their actual audience. Because yes, what we've been discussing is all very good for getting new players and for making it the next big thing. But if they're going to keep their own fan base, they need to bring back that challenge, because that people break Rogue Trader by accident. Whereas someone like me, I'll go out of my way to find a billion ways to break it harder. I had someone who just pointed out to me, he was like, yeah, I did a pet build. My pet's doing 3k damage and no one else in my party can do that. And I was like, it's what? And then looked at what he was doing and I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. But yeah, he broke it on accident, and there's just always little things like that. So they need to have a good balance of challenge, and they need to start learning to challenge the players mechanically, not through stat padding, because no one wants to do an ultimate weapon 4-hour battle. Actually, I say that some people might. I personally don't. I don't have that time for a CRPG. I want the game to challenge me, to make me think, yes, maybe min-max builds the highest difficulty, but the lower difficulty shouldn't require that, and it should be pretty engaging for how you have to do that. And then for those veteran players, having that special mode that might have an honor mode where there's new mechanics introduced, new elite type enemies, and new special legendary actions and bosses. We'll have to see if they manage to get that right for Rogue Trader, and then if they carry that into Dark Heresy.
Yeah, we shall see. Guys, you have our conclusion. We do not think that Dark Heresy is going to be 40k's Baldur's Gate 3, though it may be its Divinity Original Sin 2, which is also really awesome. It's a good step in the right direction. Go to Revan's channel and subscribe to him. He is literally the guy for Rogue Trader and going into Dark Heresy as well. Revan, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I just thank you for having me on. Thanks for discussing it with me. And like I said, the good thing with Owlcat is you can play the alpha now if you want to invest that $70, because it is open to everyone. And if you get that digital developers edition through their website, 'cause you can't purchase it through Steam, which I think is a big misstep. But you can purchase to their website, and that will get you into the alpha, it will get you into beta, and they're both going to be ongoing until the game possibly launches in November, December time. Obviously, we don't know when a beta will be, but they'll let us know as we find that out soon.
Yeah, and if you guys want to be part of the development process for this game, then get in there. Get into the alpha, get into the beta, find bugs, and squash them. Report them, and make sure that the game has the smoothest release that it can possibly have. But thanks for joining me, Revan. I really appreciate it. Guys, you have a great day. The Emperor protects.